Is everything off?
My phone's off. Did you lock the door?
No. Did you lock the door?
No, I did not.
We play it by ear.
All right. Oh shit.
No one's gonna come in. Well, maybe the mailman.
That motherfucker always comes in. Him or Haggy are just knocking at the door just to get in. It's like there's wolves outside and they got to get in before the motherfuckers get bit up.
What?
It's like, oh, let me in it. It's kind of like, what popped in my head? It was that scene from Lion King where Timon was trying to get in the rib cage and the bird was trying to get out. He was like, let me out, let me out, let me in. Oh. While the hyenas are trying to eat him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's what the mailman and Haggy do.
Mailman and Haggy.
They always like, let me in, let me in, let me in.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the podcast, everyone.
All right.
That's Alex. I'm Aaron.
Oh, how's it going?
In case you don't know us.
Figured he was starting already.
Yeah, I always do that. I feel like there's no other better way to start.
No, yeah, there is. It's like introductions, what our podcast is going to be about, and typical shit like that.
That's what now is for.
Boo.
That's what now is for. Dude, it's fucking snowing.
I know. It's crazy, isn't it? You see, when I was driving home yesterday, it was snowing a little bit. I was like, oh, that's kind of fucking weird.
It's fucking April 1st. We ran here.
We ran?
We ran.
Oh,
yeah, it was cold as fuck. And it didn't snow. I was surprised. We were here till 8. So.
Dicking around.
Well, I mean, I'm a dude. So when I was running, I was dicking around.
I thought I turned off my phone.
I thought you said you silenced that bad boy.
I thought I did.
So today's a special episode. This episode is dedicated to James, one of our Patreons.
Yeah.
He requested information, knowledge, whatever you want to call it, on the Brothers War. Something that he's been very interested about in the magic lore. And he's like, I've always known I could look it up and stuff like that, but I would like to get a perspective from someone he knows. And we don't know no one, so we have Alex here.
Yeah.
You've read like all the old books, haven't you? Most of them?
A good majority of them.
The fact that book is that thick, looking at it right now.
Yeah, I read this.
I kept thinking it was smaller.
Somebody creased it, man. The fucking savages.
I mean, let me see that real quick.
Me.
For you having this, what? How long?
Oh, quite a while.
It's in pretty good condition.
I think no. See, the pages turn brown. That means it's
moist.
Is it?
I have no clue.
That means something. It means you fucked up.
But still, no. Like I mean, like.
Well, somebody creased the front. I didn't do that.
You mean this thing down the middle?
Yeah,
here?
Fuck it. Either Gabriel did that or somebody.
Wait, this is book 1. There's how many books?
So okay, let's get down and dirty. So today, I first of all, I kind of want to apologize to James because he's requested this like 2 weeks ago. Almost 3 weeks ago.
We given that a podcast in a bit.
Yeah, there's been some changes in our lives.
I got pregnant.
Yep. I was actually gonna say that.
Me specifically.
Yep. But no. So we just got tied up in we just couldn't find our good time frame where we can both do these for James. So the Brothers War, I could breeze through this if I wanted to, but I kind of feel like I'm not. I know James, and he likes our interactions. He likes the way we talk about things. So since he paid for this, and I'm gonna break this up into. So the Brothers War.
Hold on, finish that. You're gonna break this up into what?
I'm gonna break this up into because this book is in 4 parts.
Okay.
So part 1 is a study of forces. Part 2 is objects in motion. Part 3 is. I'm gonna butcher this. Converging trajectories. Yep.
Is that what it is? Oh.
Yep. And then part 4 is critical mass. So going. So the Brothers War is book 1 of the artifact cycle. So the book number 2 is Planeswalker, which is Urza being a Planeswalker. Number 3 is Time Stream. Number 4 is Bloodlines. But here's the funny thing: there's technically 5 in this series. They finally, sometime, I forgot when, but sometime after these books were done, they made the Thran. So after this cycle was done, years have gone by, and then they made a Thran, which is technically a prelude to the Brothers' War. It's about the Thran people, which you're going to hear a lot about right now when I talk about this story, because it's a big. They impacted Dominaria way more than a lot of people think they did. They're very responsible for pretty much a big change. I mean, maybe if someone wants to know anything about the Thran, I'll read that book up and then give the story here on the Patreon. You want to throw me a 5?
Yeah, real quick, actually, I should probably explain that too. The reason why, and we're doing this episode, I mean, if it's not blatantly obvious, is that we started a Patreon about 3 weeks ago or so, and we have a few Patreon members, and I'm going to shout out their names here in a minute. But James, part of the we have 3 different tiers: the thief, rogue, and assassin level. Just kept in theme with the name of Hideaway Gaming, and stuff like that. But the assassin tier, the $20 tier, gets you merch, shout outs in our podcast. You get access to the AMAs that Ask Me Anythings from me and Alex, which you can post on the Patreon. Episode requests, content requests soon, stuff like that, because we're starting to record some of our Magic games, stuff like that. But James' request specifically was the Brothers' War, like I said earlier. So that's what this episode's dedicated to. So if you want to sit down, grab a snack, and listen to Alex's sultry voice explain this, then you're in luck. That doesn't mean we're going to deviate off of our normal episode. And then also with this, you'll get bonus episodes that we'll be putting out here soon. Yep. The first episode will be free to everyone, but then after that, it'll be behind the respectable tier that they're in.
Yeah. So like this episode should be in James's tier.
This episode is the episode this is part of like the normal episodes, or they should be. Okay. The way that it works. And so, because people are just like, oh, this is part of the normal thing where I'm going to be listening to someone's request today. Well, how do I get a request in? And that's usually where they're like, oh, I want to be a part of that type stuff.
Yeah. So, I'm assuming that this is going to be the free one, and then the second half will go on the Patreon then?
No, well, the way that I saw that this works is these type of episodes are always free to everyone, because then everyone has to listen to them. So if you're like wanting a podcast episode this week, and you're like, oh, well, I got to listen to this dude's request. Okay, because it's like supposed to be like once every while.
Yeah.
And then if that person's like, well, I want to request something, then they get into the Patreon to do so. The other episodes, the side episodes, is whatever, we talk about. If I do one at home or we do it here, and it's not part of our normal one, that we do on Saturdays and stuff like that, then that's usually the one where that's the bonus episodes. But we can work it however we want. I mean, we're new to this Patreon thing, so
yeah.
Just real quick before Alex starts, I just want to list off these names. It's Silverstorm Gaming, Greg. Greg S. I'm not going to say last names. James H. and Justin R. We thank you for your continued Patreon commitment. I don't know, however you want to say it, to us. We greatly appreciate it.
All right. Well, all right. So today we're going to be talking about the Brothers' War. Like I said, I'm going to try to... I really wanted to do it all in one shot, but I feel like there's a lot of cool things you can talk about in this that are magic related in the real world. I do... Just a little side note, so before I start, a lot of these things that, if you ever read the book, there's a lot of the cards that are actually in antiquities. there's a ton of stuff in there that are related to the Brothers' War, and there are a lot of stuff that they pretty much refer to Urza and Mishra. So. All right, so the Brothers' War, Part 1. It's a study of force. So basically, it starts off in AR 10 to AR 20, and also, if you don't know what AR means, it's Argavian reckoning. So it started at 0 the day Mishra and the day Urza was born. Technically, those are the AR. That's when 0 started, when Mishra and Urza were born. So what happened? How it opens up the scene is that Urza and Mishra are kids, and they're pretty much on this wagon, and this I think you just want to call him like a trader, a merchant. He's riding through this desert and camp. So this desert camp is it's out in the desert, digging, excavating. They're just excavating old Thran parts. So they show up to this camp, and they instantly get in an argument with the merch guy that they were traveling with. And he wants to pretty much just enslave him. He's tricking him. He's trying to like strong arm him, and to the point where like they owe him more. But they had an agreement with the merch saying, hey, they will work their way until they got to that encampment from Argavian. So that's where they're from. So, because Urza and Mishra are Argavians, which is a country outside of, I think it's Corlos. Yep. And, yeah. So it's basically, I don't have a map and it's hard to describe. So basically what happened, this guy is literally trying to get him to, hey, you're going to work your way to here and then work your way back to pay payment. And they were like, well, that makes no damn sense, man. Then I would have to get back here again. And he says, that's not my problem, bro. I want to keep out. You're going to have to keep working for me. Bro. So this old ass lady named Takasia shows up, hears them yelling. She's like, they're pretty much, I mean, these kids.
Just the way you're explaining this is pure gold so far.
Yeah. So her name is Takasia. And she's pretty much shows up and just like, what's going on? And is like, oh, nah. He's like, bitch, mind your own business. And she was like, what? I'm going to go to the side of your head. And then he got serious. That actually really happened. So he was like, so she intimidated him. So this old ass lady somehow just like pretty much told him what to, just pretty much put him in his place. But, they go, so Mishra and Urza are pretty much just sitting to the side and listening to these two talk, and then Urza pulls out a scroll that had a seal. So apparently Urza's dad is pretty much dying. I mean, that's what the letter says, and they implicate that he's dying in the story. And then the old lady knows Urza's and Mishra's dad. So then she reads a letter and it says, take care of my kids. But she owes him. She owes him a big favor because she was enslaved and he had freed her. So then now she pretty much is her own independent person, and she's the leader of this camp that's basically excavating all these Thran artifacts. They're out in the desert just trying to do all that. And then so she takes in Urza and Mishra, and as soon as she's like done talking to the merch, trying to put him in his place, she hears those two arguing and getting in a physical fight with some other kids, like older kids at the camp. And then apparently they were picking on Urza, and the Mishra had to step in, and then there was a big old fight. And then she was like, you guys weren't even here for like fucking 10 minutes. You're already fighting somebody. And then they're like, well, he started it and then all that shit. You know, just like a kid. So they're just little kids. So some years are going by. As the years go by, the brothers, they briefly talk about how much they fight. They just kind of argue. Because one of the biggest, because when they introduced each other, Urza was like, I'm the oldest brother. And then he's like, he says, only by a few, like, I think he said a few months. Or, I don't know how they timed their years there, but he made it sound like only on a certain day, we are the same age. Yeah, right? So they made it so on one day out of the year, their year, or I don't know how their birth cycle works, is really funky. So out of one day of the year, they are matching ages. So which makes no sense. I never took a second thought about it until I said it now. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. So when I was reading it, I was just like, okay. So that's a big thing. They talk about that a lot in the story. So as the story's going on, they're growing up. Now they're about teenagers. Urza's really, really like a typical big brother. You know, always bossy and always telling Mishra what to do. And Mishra is pretty much your typical like younger brother with a temper. And they're always consistently arguing. So as they're pretty much growing up and as teenagers in there, they're out in this. It's pretty much like they're nomads, but they're called the Falaji, and they're like the desert people, basically. They have all these Falaji people hanging out at the camp, and they're helping them excavate and doing all these things and showing them how to survive in the desert. And and then they had students there also that were pretty much their like interns, spare interns, whatever. So from all these different countries. And because the reason why they were doing it is because they wanted to, Takasi was doing it because she loved, researching all these things about the Thrans, finding the history of them. And then they also found it to be a very, I guess there's a lot of money in it. So a lot of people will buy, trade. That's why that merchant was rolling into the camp, because he was trying to see what they had. So and so they're all teenagers now, and they kind of just start to pull away from each other. The two brothers, when they first showed up, they relied on each other a lot. And then that was the cool thing that they did about this too, is because Mishra and Urza were really tight together, like, because they only had themselves. And then as they get older, they kind of start pulling away from each other. So like Mishra starts hanging out with the Falaji people, like basically interacting with them, eating dinner with them, hanging out at the camps. And then, but Urza, he pretty much stayed in his tent, studied the whole entire time, like basically studying all the finds that all the Falaji people were digging up, and just reading books and shit, being a nerd. And then and Mishra was out there digging with the Falaji people, talking, learned how to speak Falajian, or yeah, that's how you say it. This name. Yeah. Right. So for the most part, that's what happened as a childhood. And one of the biggest things too, as time has gone by, one of the Falaji people finds a well-conditioned ornithopter. So if anybody doesn't know what an ornithopter is, it's pretty much in Magic. It's a Magic card. It's a 0 casting cost, 0/2 flyer, and just like that. So then it's the frame of the whole thing is in working condition, but because they found ornithopters before, and then but they were broken and they were all basically rusted out and shit. But this was actually really great condition. The only thing that was only wrong with it is they had to fix the fans on the wings. So they go to fix it up. Urza and Mishra are arguing how to fix it, what kind of material to do it, and here's where the story starts to turn, where you having two different because Urza and Mishra are pretty smart kids, and at this point they're teenagers, so they're really to the point where they're arguing all the time, yelling, and not cooperating when they can basically cooperate. And then so they're basically arguing this whole entire time, and then about how to fix this ornithopter. Then they finally fix it, and then as they're fixing the ornithopter, the next day they do a trial. So then they fly it. They fly this ornithopter, and then Urza was saying, they asked she was like, who's gonna fly it first? And then he said, Urza manned up. He was like, hey man, I'm gonna fly it first. And then Mishra was like, no, you're not. Why do you get to fight first? So then they sit there and argue again. So I mean, they're like fucking arguing, just going back and forth. And he was like, well, I'm the oldest brother, and he says only by whatever that phrase they go again on the, I guess it was that day. It was his birthday. So he says not today because, it's my birthday. So we're the same age. But either way, Urza went up first. And it ended up where he was flying it, doing fine, everything like that, keeping all proper, making the levers, pulling all the levers right, correctly, making it flow, like a robot. Basically, it was pretty stiff in the air. Comes on down, gives it to Mishra. But Mishra is like a fucking animal, so he just goes up there and he's making it like jet back and forth, circling and going higher and higher and going wider in the circles. And then he lands, and Urza was pretty mad at him because he was like, you shouldn't have been out for that long. You strained all the strings. You've put wear and tear on it. The machine's old. And he's bitching at him, and he's talking about, and he's critiquing him the whole entire time, what he did, how he did follow the ornithopter, and so he's just bitching at him the whole entire time. And then he says, well, if you would have not paid attention to the machine, you would have seen the glyphics. There was so Mishra's the only one that noticed, but when he was flying over the camp, he saw that there was, I guess you would call them glyphics, where basically they're like, how what is it, those crop, what are they called?
HeroClix?
No, not HeroClix. Yeah.
No, you're talking about those things that they make in the crops and stuff.
Yeah, but
all I know is they're crop circles.
Yeah, something like that. But there was old, I think they have some of those in Chile.
Oh, they're like they're like
in the ground. But in
ground.
Chile they have stones.
Yeah,
and then if you look it above, you can see that it's something.
Yeah, they also have like just patterns in the grass somehow, and it's like a bird or something. So those are awesome.
So basically, same thing.
Okay,
there was a bunch of Thran writing on the surface of the land, and Urza didn't see it because he was paying attention to the ornithopter the whole entire time. He was trying to this is this and this and that. But this, again, these are the two different personalities where they're both observant but in two different ways, where Urza stays to concentrated on what he's trying to do, but he's really well at concentrating and figuring out what's going on, when Mishra is more of I don't know, I observe everything around me type of deal. And that's the different one. So after reading this book, I was really thinking that Mishra has ADD and Urza has some kind of autism. Because you can you can see again, like even in the beginning where Mishra's really really hype, and where he's just like even as a child, an adult, very emotional and just going through some stuff, like just basically can't stay still. While Urza is like very standoffish, doesn't mind being by his own, doesn't really talk to people, doesn't really care to talk to people, and all he cares is about his books and studying, right? And his machines. So time goes. So they figured that out, and they're like, well, we'll follow the landscape where all these these markings are showing. And then, so basically, what had happened is that after that happened, it shows them to the caves of Corlos. So everyone that knows that, if you play Magic, you know what a caves of Corlos is. It's that
white land,
that black white land, pain land. So they go there. So they end up going there. They take the ornithopter there, and they're flying there. And as they come to basically where the land or these land markings are pointing them towards, and because they're finding on the landscape. So then they get there, and they pretty much go into this cave. And as they enter the cave, they start to notice some things. Like they notice. So let me rephrase. The people that went was Urza, Mishra, and Takasia. They all went. Those three are the only ones that went in an ornithopter and flew there, and then tried to investigate most of the stuff. So as they go there, they enter the cave, the mouth of the cave. As they get a little bit deeper into it, they realize that it's clean, like it's pretty much been untouched. And as they get closer, deeper and deeper to the cave, they start to they hear something. They hear like a humming. It's like a throbbing humming. It's like I don't know. If I were to impersonate what it sounds like, it would be like But that's what I was when I was reading it. That's how it was in my head. So I was like, oh, okay, that's what.
So it's not canon.
No, not canon one bit. But I'm just saying, in my head, that's how I pictured it when I was reading that. So then they're going, and then they're going up these, pretty much, they're going like, it's like some stairs, but they're like going down the side of like a cave wall, if that makes any sense. So they're going down these stairs. Everything is clean. There's not a speck of dirt. They notice that there's no like dead bodies. There's no like bones of animals or feces or anything. It's like straight up like a new mire. Like you go in there and it smells like paint. It's like, man, who in the fuck was in here, man? Somebody's painting like a new. So basically, it was clean as hell. You know, so they walk in there, they keep going down these stairs, and they keep going down these stairs, and then they see this glowing, basically oval shape. It's like oval shape stone that was pretty much radiating different rainbow colors, and then it was like pulsing. And they're like, oh, what is that? And then it was like, oh, and Takashi was like, that's a power stone, because she knew, because she read the Thran, so the power stone. So she was like, yeah, she knew what Takashi is.
Does she say it's A or it's the power
it's
stone?
A.
So is there more than one?
Huh?
Is there more than one power stone?
Yes, there's multiple. So the little side note here. So they come to find later in their studies, they find that these power stones were very much used by the Thran to basically operate a lot of the machines.
Oh, okay.
So that's why they call them the power stones, because they're stones
Makes sense.
that can pretty much awaken these machines. So basically, they're like looking at it, not touching anything yet. So like they're basically getting And then they're trying to read some of the stuff, and then Urza's yelling at Mishra because Mishra wants to touch shit, and he's like, "Man, stop touching shit." He's like, "I'm not touching shit," and he says, "Okay," and then he says, "Don't touch me," and then he's like, "I'm not touching you. I said don't fucking touch me." So then, blam, the fucking Power Stone explodes. The real question is, there's the real thing. You kind of look at it. If you're reading the book, it's like that scene in Star Wars. Who shot first? You know, Han or the other guy? Same thing with going with this, because they started arguing.
Yeah.
They start arguing in front of the Power Stone, and Takashi's trying to calm them down, and they're like sitting there, and he's like, "Don't touch me, bro. I'm not fucking touching you." He's fucking touching me. "Don't touch me, bro." And I was like, "I'm not touching you." And then next thing,
the Power Stone was like, not
explodes.
in my house.
Yeah. So, and it explodes. So now there's a huge flashing white light that covers all of them and pretty much like deafens them. Is that what you were saying?
If they were if they were deafened,
they were blind and deaf. So, but here's the funny thing: only one person got blind and deaf. The two other people out of the three didn't. They got visions. So these visions. So the way you're reading the story is the first vision that goes to the description is Urza. So in his vision, he's basically seeing all these golden mechanical machines that you kind of seen in the future. So basically, it's more of his creations. So in his vision, he's getting insight of all these different Thran machines. So basically, it's like flowing knowledge of all this, like how this machinery is and what happens. You know how basically, it's just basically all these machines working, and that's all his vision was. So. And then there's not too much into his vision other than the golden machines and the cogs and him trying to figure out what's like understanding what's around him. So then that's one of the two visions. The other person, Mishra, he gets a different vision. So his vision is like he's in a black room and it smells of oil and like soot. Yeah.
Gasp.
Yeah. So then he sees a grinning like figure in the distance, and it's harder to describe.
Krovax.
No.
I'm just guessing.
No. Is so the way they described it, he saw this figure and it looked half machine and half flesh. So the way it was a moving machine with tentacles coming out of the back of his head, and they were pretty much alive tentacles, but they were machine. So he didn't, and he felt like this oil all on his feet, and he kept hearing a whisper. This whole whisper, and he doesn't know what's going on. And then he finally, in the vision, he sees, the last thing he sees is, as he goes to turn away, he notices that there's another thing there in this vision, and it's a dragon. It's a machine version of a dragon.
Oh.
So that's another magic card.
Was it a Draco?
Nope, it's just a dragon engine.
Oh, Ramos?
No, it's just a dragon. I think there's an old magic card. I'm pretty sure there is. It's just called Dragon Engine.
Okay.
So it's just Dragon Engine, and then so basically his dream was into something I won't pinpoint now, but we'll get to it here later. So. And Takasia, she didn't get a vision. She just got blinded and deaf for like a brief moment, and she got knocked back. And as everybody came to, the Power Stone was gone. and then as everybody woke up, Mishra had one half of the stone in his hand, which radiated green, like a dark green color. And then Urza woke up with the other half of the power stone in his hand, which like was a yellow gold that radiated at his. I'm pretty sure it's gold. Oh shit! Now I gotta look it up.
What's that?
The colors are significance. So there's two different stones with two different colors. I'm pretty sure it was gold, and Mishra's was green.
What are you asking?
The color of the stones that Mishra and Urza had.
I'll look it up for you.
I'm pretty sure. So either way, so then they wake up, and then as soon as they wake up, that bitch ass Urza starts yelling at Mishra. And he's telling them, he's like, what did you touch? He's like, I didn't touch shit. And then he's like, and he said, no, you touched something. And I was like, I didn't touch nothing. And then so they're yelling at each other, and they start, and as they're yelling again, their stones start to get brighter. And they're brightening, like the stones are getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And as that was happening, they pretty much awaken there's some like, so they didn't notice these because there were some machines just like sitting in the back of the cave, and they were like pretty much guards. So these guards are pretty much they pretty much protect the whole the cave, because where they're technically at, they're at a portal. That portal is being guarded by those guards, those mechanical guards. But as soon as they start arguing, so technically Urza's stone, which is the might stone, you'll eventually start to call it they call it the might stone, the weak stone. Urza's is the one that actually awakens those machines, because let me get to it in a minute, but his stone wakes them up. So they notice that these machines are alive and they're coming at them. So then they're like, whoa, shit, we got to get the hell out of here. So they start running up these stairs. They almost don't make it. They're getting almost to the top, but there were so many stairs and they had to carry this old ass bitch. And then Urza tries to use his stone on them because he thought it was a good idea, but he actually empowered them. So his stone made the machines move faster as they were coming. So then Mishra wanted to try his, and Urza said, no, don't try it. It's only going to make them stronger again. And then he says, no, I have a feeling. So, and he's like, no, so keep running. And they're getting to the top. They're very top. And then Mishra just turns around because they're about to get caught and uses his stone. As soon as he uses his stone, it pretty much dampens these machines. And they pretty much like kind of slow down and then eventually just kind of collapse on itself. So right there in the stairs, which stops them. You know, it really stops it. It just really slows them down. So then it gets enough time to escape. As they are leaving, they notice that there's a rot. There's a rot there. You know, when those there's those big ass birds. You see them in Magic.
Oh, you're talking about rocks as the creature type.
Yeah, the creature type.
Yeah.
So there's one of them perched at the top of the fucking, like, the perch at the top of the cave's mouth, and he notices them running to their ornithopter. So now they got to try to escape that. Why not get killed by these damn machines at the same time?
I'm more like a student asking a teacher a question.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that the portal like to Fire City though, or something like that?
Yes, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Man, you're trying to fuck up some shit, man.
Just
Why
ask
are you fucking up? So that's where the power stone was set. It was sit in there. It was the power was sitting in the portal.
Kind of like locking it down or something?
No, I mean, remember when I mentioned Thrans use power stones to pretty much for every single to power up their machines. So the power stone were used by the Thrans to basically power their machines.
When the stone was broken, because you said the stone was broken, right?
Yep.
So it was called a power stone, and then when it was broken, it was still called a power stone, but the other half was called a meek stone?
Yeah, so here in the book they just called it the power stone.
Oh.
Well, they just called it a stone. Let me rephrase that. I'm so sorry. They called it a stone.
Oh, okay.
Because later down the road there are power stones, but they're not like those.
Okay.
So there's something unique about this stone that got split in half. It only got split in half when Urza and Mishra were involved. Because there was... I'm really terrible at this. I'm so sorry. So there was an incident also. So I want to give this before I get any a little bit further into it. So my theory on Mishra and Urza, I think they, after you... I don't want to, but there's some incidences. So when I skipped this out because I didn't think it was too important, but I want to emphasize on my theory. So I think Urza and Mishra are I guess I don't want to say children, but their ancestors were Thran, because there was an interaction when they got into the camp, which wasn't really too important, but it was kind of unique. It was just like, huh. But when Urza and Mishra got to the camp, Takasia showed them like this kind of skull. It's like basically a crystal skull that was Thran, and it was cut. It was like cracked and stuff like that. She passes to Urza, and then Mishra wants to look at it, and then Mishra tries to take it from Urza, and Urza's like, "No, you're gonna break it." And then he's like, "No, I'm not." And then he's like, so they're pulling on these, and they're getting mad, but the thing starts to glow a little bit.
Okay.
And then the little skull glows a little bit, and then Takasia pulls it away from both of them. It's like, go to your quarters. And as she pulls it away and they walk away, she notices the skull is not cracked anymore. So that was a little glimpse of them. As the story goes on, you start to see that Mishra's more in touch with the actual, like, I don't know, the magic side of the machines.
Yeah.
Rather than Urza. But Urza, because Urza's so logical. So, but either way. So going back to the story. So that's why Mishra has a fun feeling about a stone, had a fun feeling that he could use the stone and Urza didn't have these feelings. He was just thinking logically. He's like, it didn't work for me. Why do you think it's going to work for you? And Mishra was like, no, I think you can do it. So this rot sees him, and then he tries to, like, this rock sees him, tries swooping in on him, and they're pretty much pinched between the soldiers that are coming, the mechanical soldiers that are coming at him, and then the rot that's pretty much trying to eat him. So then, basically, at this point, Mishra, it tries to dives on him, and it swoops in, and as that you swoop in, Mishra uses his weak stone, which is called the weak stone. He weakens the rot. It's pretty much it flies away, but not really. It goes to the cliffside and watches them. So it's just gonna let him get away from whatever, and then because the weak stone can't reach him. So it's just kind of buying his time till they get into the ornithopter and fly away, and they'll probably attack him. So then Mishra. So then also these caves has kind of like old machines, and then that's an so as they're trying to like divert themselves, so Urza was basically ran off and said, "Hey, I'll create a diversion. You guys get in the ornithopter and get the hell out of here." And then they were like, "Well, no, I'll do it. You and him." Was like, "No, I got this." So then he sees that there's these next to the cave. He sees that there's these other broken machines, like spider-looking ones, a scorpion-looking ones, and all these different machines that are just rusted out and everything. So then he hops in this one of these machines that's the spider one, and pretty much they get in the ornithopter. Mishra and Takasi get in the ornithopter, and then they fly, and he tries to get him diversion, by attacking. So then the rock comes in on Mishra and Takasia, and Mishra gets in one of these machines and puts his power stone, lights up his power stone in one of the, he finds this compartment where he gets it and controls the machine, wakens the machine up with his power stone, and then this machine actually has a fucking flamethrower. So then he shoots the rock out of the air, and then it flies. Luckily, it falls right in the mouth of the caves, crashing down on the soldiers that were coming out, those mechanical soldiers. It was like, oh, this is boo. But no, so
plot.
yeah. So basically, it pretty much lands on them in flames, and then they go to pick up Urza. So Urza goes, and then Mishra and Urza. So Urza fucking gets on Mishra's ass again because he's using the weak stone, because they never got a chance to talk about it. He says you didn't know if your stone was gonna work that way, and he's like, well, I had a feeling, and he's like, you can't just be feeling, you could have endangered us, and he's pretty much yelling at him like a big brother to a little brother. He's just yelling at him, and then he's like, give me your stone, you're irresponsible. And Mishra's like, no, I don't want to. This is my stone. So then Urza was like, well, then he said, you give me yours. And then he's like, no, I'm not going to give you mine. I'm the oldest. And then, so then they're arguing back and forth again. And then Urza was like, fine, I'll give you my stone. Instead, Urza, for some fucking reason, thought he was handing him the mission. Like, they were still heated and they were yelling at each other, and Takasi's trying to calm them down, but he actually punches Mishra in the face with the stone in his hand.
How old are they right now?
They're about teenagers.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe 15, 17.
Okay.
Something like that. So that's happened. So then, they're pretty much, this is an awkward silence. Mishra looks at Urza like, like basically like, you son of a bitch. And then no one says anything. Takasi stops it all. And then so pretty much, this is where I think that's the turning point of their relationships, because after that, they are completely distanced from each other. They don't communicate like they used to. They don't have conversations, so what happens after that, they go back to the camp, don't talk about anything. They don't talk about what they found. They don't talk about anything, because for one, the Falaji didn't like that they were going out there, because they think those caves were sacred, and then no one or they're cursed or that type of deal. So they were like, because they're like natives to the desert, and that's part of the caves of the Kolos is kind of one of the things. So basically what had happened is that he goes there, they go back to the camp, and Mishra moves his shit. So he takes all his stuff and sets up a camp, a tent with the Falaji people. So now at this point, he's never coming to the dinner with them, and he's always just hanging out the fire and sleeping with the Falaji people rather than with the students. So then Urza pretty much turned his side of the room, Mishra's side of the room, into a study hall where he put more books, more machines, and all that stuff. And Mishra didn't like that at all. So they would have a couple of interactions, but the interactions weren't that great. The interactions were always led into a huge argument, almost to blows. So one fucking crazy night, Mishra thought it was a good idea. He got drunk. And the years have gone by. So there's maybe a few years have gone by. So now they're like a young adults. So Mishra and his buddy, let me just call him Jay because I never know how to pronounce his name. It's like, oh God, he's not important. That's why I didn't write his name down. He wasn't important because he wasn't like, he's not an important magic character, So he's like, he doesn't have a card or anything like that, or a weapon or an artifact he's just a Falaji friend that he had. And, which is kind of important. He's kind of important in the story because he helps out Urza lay down the road, but I'll explain that in a minute. It starts with a J. I forgot his name. But either way, this guy helps. Let's just call him Little J. Little J goes out with Mishra, and they're both drunk. So they're marching. So the guy, the leader of the Falaji people, he sees Mishra and the Jade kid walking towards Urza's tent. So then he was like, "Oh, we're just going out for a stroll." Okay. And then he calls the J kid and he's like, "Hey man, come walk with me right quick." And he lets Mishra be by himself. So then Mishra goes to Urza's tent and he tries to take the Might Stone. So that doesn't end well at all. So then they're sitting there arguing, one holding the Might Stone, Urza holding the Might Stone, and accusing of Mishra of trying to take his stone. And Mishra's yelling back at him, and then as they're doing that, I can't remember who did what, who started it first, but they turned the stones on each other. I don't know who started it first, but they both turned the stones on each other. So now there's a huge energy beams coming at each other. And then Takasia's like sees it from the distance and she starts running up to the camp. And as she runs up, tries to stop them, they don't hear anything. They're pretty much almost killing themselves because there's like blood coming out of their nose and they're like pretty much
they saw some titties.
Yeah. So they're pretty much trying to kill each other using stones against each other. But killing because the stones wear on the user, so they're pretty much wearing themselves out. And then it ends with one big blast again. The blast ends up killing Takasia, and then they all look. Everybody in the camp was looking at them like, "What the fuck just happened?" Because no one knew those stones could do that, and because nobody remember. Like I said, no one talked about it. Nobody talked about anything. They just kind of kept it to itself. Everybody, anyone knew is they came back with 2 separate stones, and then that's it. Nobody, not even Mishra or Urza or Takasia, talked about it to the rest of the. So nobody knew what was going on and why they could do what they could do with those stones. So Takasia got killed, and aftermath of that is like basically Mishra. They both got emotional. They realized what they did, and they killed one of the people that raised them, and pretty much was like a mother to him, right? So they end up killing Mishra. Urza was just standing there, blame Mishra, and then Mishra didn't say anything, but just got up and ran.
Why does it sound like Urza's just a dick and all this?
Oh, he is a dick.
How much more do you gotta go? How much more is there to the story?
That's what I try to tell you. That's why I feel like there's a lot. We're not even in part 2 yet.
How many parts?
4 parts.
Oh my god!
I try to tell you.
Yeah, but
that's why I want to break it up in 2. That's like because I was like, ooh.
We could break up in 2 as long as in the next one you can get it all
Speed up.
done.
All right, man. All right. Okay. I just
No,
there's more detail.
I think you're doing great.
Okay.
It's just it's like 1 minute left.
Ooh. There's nobody here though. We're all right. We're all right.
It's
It's all right. It's all right, man. Nobody's gonna come in.
God.
And see. Hey, you're stalling me. We got one more part to go. So, because I wanted to get into this other one, the other one should speed up a little bit faster. I think maybe. Ugh.
Well, that would make sense. I mean, this is the introduction, so
Yeah. So the introduction. So again, Mishra ran away. They didn't know where he went. He just ran into the dark, into the desert by himself. A couple people went looking for him, couldn't find him. Urza was gonna stay in the camp, but the Falaji people looked up to Cassia so long. They're the leader of the camp of the Falaji people. Urza asked him, he's like, "Am I safe if I stay here?" He's like, "Since you're responsible for her death, most likely they're gonna kill you in your sleep." And he was like, "Okay." And then he bounced too. So then he bounced. And that's the end of their adolescence. So the next story goes, so I put childhood. And this is part 2. This is objects in motion. So the couple of things. So it starts off with Krug, the city Krug. Not a magic art at all. You would think it would be, right? And
are they still in Dominaria though?
Yeah, it's the continent. There's a so Dominaria is in like 3 different continents. It has three continents, I think.
So Dominaria is the plane, but there's multiple different continents.
There's different, there's different countries and continents and
like
stuff.
Mercadia is there, right? Is Mercadia there?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I didn't see that. I thought Mercadia was something else.
I could be wrong. I was just curious.
But either way, you how do you do it? Yotians? Yotians? Yeah, Yotians. So Krug is in Krug is a city in the land of Yotian. So and this is stories. This story is quite some time. It's like 3 to 5 years after what happened at the camp. This is starting off with Urza. So Urza basically flees to the city, takes a job as a clockworker. So basically repairs clocks, fixes clocks, makes clocks. The princess of the Krug warlord, Kalia. No, wait, not Kalia. Kalia.
Of the Vast?
Oh no, Kayla. My bad. Kayla. So
just a normal name, Kayla.
Kayla. Yep.
Good,
Kayla.
Good job, magic writers.
Yeah. So Kayla, she's pretty much parading in the city, and they're celebrating. I forgot what they were celebrating about, but she goes to this clock maker. So she needs a music box fixed. So Urza meets her, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, I can fix it," and he's being like nonchalant about it. He's like, "Yeah, this is what it is," and do you have the key? He's like being really like having really short conversations with her, and then she's kind of like thinking he's handsome and shit like that, and he's like, whatever. He's like, "Be gone, bitch. I want to get back to work."
Get away, thought.
Yeah, pretty much. So he's just like kind of like, he's like, "Okay, whatever. Do you have a key?" And he's like, "No, because this thing needs to be wind up." And he was like, "I got one, bitch. Let me go get one." So he comes back, gives her the key, and then she pretty much fixed the box. She leaves. The clockwork or the clock shop or the owner of the store, he basically was trying to egg on Urza's like, "Hey man, why didn't you talk to her? This is so awesome. They got the princess coming in here. Everybody's gonna buy clocks from me now." And he's like, "Well, I don't give a shit, man. I just want to go back to work, man." And then he's like, "Well, what's wrong with you Argivians?" He's talking shit about him. He's like, you guys don't love, you guys don't worship people, you guys are so logical." And it was like, "You guys are boring." And then he was like, "Whatever, man. I'm just going back to my clock."
So is this part 2?
This is part 2.
Oh, okay.
So
you got 30 seconds.
So the story. So So the story goes, so then he's living good, has a job, and then Kalia, that's what happened. So they're celebrating her marriage, but then the guy that she was going to get married to died. So then her dad was like, what the fuck? So then he makes a tournament. He sets the statue up in the middle of the town, and he's like, if anybody can move it from here to point A to point B, can marry my daughter. So then everybody lines up. So they got all these like fucking juiced ass people,
Juiced ass people.
Some juicy juices to the gills. Pretty much these guys are trying to move it, and it becomes it almost becomes like every other week like ritual.
Someone's
so everybody will line up, people will try. There's a big event. So then weeks have gone by, and Urza finally went to go see one of the because of his boss was like, let's go watch it, and he was like, I guess, man, let's go. So then they go, and then they're just watching these big dudes trying to pick this statue up, not working. None of them's doing it. Nobody's doing it at all.
That's a perfect place to stop then. That way it's a cliffhanger.
Do we want to stop?
I mean, it's 11:02.
I guess.
Well, you gotta pick a nice spot to stop. That way,
that's not even a good spot.
What's a good spot to stop?
I guess we can talk about that later. I guess. James, I'm sorry.
No, we already said it's gonna be another episode.
Ooh, that whole other episode gonna have a lot more stuff. Man, I guess I'm just gonna have to cut it in big events.
It's just when you talk about stuff in general, you just always forget how fast time passes when you talk about stuff.
Okay, man. I guess.
Well, I do.
All right.
You ever shot the shit someone and you're like, oh, it's like 2 a.m. and then shit, it's like fucking time to go to work.
Yeah, I guess. Well, let me finish this part though. Okay, so this is just Urza's part. Well, either way, so Urza sees that there's Jam's totem or tome. It's an actual
Jayid's tome.
Jam's tome.
Yeah.
It was in all the prize, like there's like prize money. So there was like a gems, power stones, and then, or not power stones, but like gems, gold, and weapons and shit like that. But that book was there, and it was in Thran. So then he was like, "Oh, what's that?" And it's like, "Oh, it's a book." And then he's like, "I'm gonna enter the contest." So he enters the contest, and then he tells the warlord, he says, "Can I move? Am I allowed to move this with my mind?" And the warlord laughed at him. He's like, "Yeah, show me what you got if you want to move this with your mind." So then he was like, so then he brings out this machine, and the machine picks it up and moves it. So pretty much, he moves the statue using his mind. So now he weds the daughter, and then he gets that Thran book. On his wedding night, he let his wife go to bed, and he stayed up reading the book. That's how much. But then next week the next time we can talk about. Then it goes into the side of Mishra. So
next time on Dragon Ball Z.
all right, man.
All right, we're gonna cut it off here. Next, we're gonna do another episode here in the next few days, and we will continue with the awesome lore of the Brothers' War, presented by the fabulous.
It's gonna be forever.
Take care, all.
All right, later. Bye.